All right, there we go. There we go. ANCAP Radio. We are here. Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, no. Can you hear me? Give me.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well,
Good,
when you,
good morning, Adam.
good morning, Dave. Normally on this app, okay, I can see the little purple things next to my name moving here. So we are live. Hello, and if you're tuned in on the replay, greetings as well. Make sure you hit the like button, the retweet button, get this one out to your friends, family, and beyond. I'm here with New Zealand's most wanted, Dave Henderson. You said you had some snow last night, Dave.
Yeah, we're quite unseasonal. Of course, we're at the end of October, so in the southern hemisphere, we're 2 months into our spring, and I'm sitting looking at a big snow dump on the mountains all around me, and it's 0 degrees. But anyway, I'm not sure whether that's global warming, global cooling, or what it is, Adam. But what are we? I've had snow on the same property on Christmas Day, but that was about 20 years ago. So it happens. Hey.
Right. Well, I still try to wrap my mind around what it's like living in New Zealand or Australia, where the seasons are opposite of, I guess, the more famous Northern Hemisphere seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a delightful quirk. It's a delightful cosmic quirk that I often reflect upon, and how different life might be if we.
I think you cut out. I think you might have cut out there, Dave.
So,
still with us? Oh, there we go. He's back. All right. I think the snow.
About the delightful quirk that arises as a consequence of living on a planet with a tilt on its axis. But there you go. So,
well, I heard you just made it through your election season as well.
Well, we did. We had an election here in New Zealand approximately 2 weeks ago. It's probably inappropriate to say we had one because we're still in the midst of it as a consequence of some bizarre events and situations. We have a very complicated electoral system that would probably take me the next hour to explain were I to do so, Adam. But the bottom line is that everyone gets 2 votes in New Zealand when you turn up. So there you go. So this is serious democracy, isn't it? To give people 2 votes instead of just
two whole votes. You can save one for later if you want.
So you get to vote for your representative in the geographic region, the electorate, we call it, that you live in. And then, believe it or not, you get to vote for a political party of your choice. And if a political party gets more than 5% of the votes, then they get a proportionate share of the seats in our parliament, regardless of the fact that they didn't get any representatives or electorate members of parliament elected. Does that begin to make sense? The notion of it was that we historically had what US has, a first past the post system, we'll say, when you turned up and you voted for. You either voted for the party A of the left or party B of the left, fundamentally, just as Americans turn up and vote for either Democrats or Republicans. So we had that, and then we had this clever idea that we wanted to have more representation, so we'd bring in all these create these opportunities for smaller parties. So anyway, we had our election 2 weeks ago. And New Zealand, of course, gained a lot of notoriety over the last 3 or 4 years politically, didn't it? As a consequence, internationally, as a consequence of its appalling response to COVID, to its lockdowns that we had, to the mandates that came in, and then the massive push for vaccination. Appalling period in New Zealand's political history, and of course that was driven by a hardcore party of the left, and of course we had a prime minister who herself gained significant notoriety, Jacinda Ardern, who fundamentally drove all this, was the face of all this. We had an election in the middle of that COVID, or late 2020, and her political party romped in with about 55% of the popular vote, which was extraordinary. And then, of course, that gave her all the tools in the world, all the need in the world to get on and become a seriously dictatorial political party. Now, she wisely retired from politics in January this year. And, I mean, that was because she realized the writing was on the wall. She realized that her political party had, whilst they had gained some support for their COVID response from the more collectivist-minded folk in our community, that a lot of them had got thoroughly pissed with her, and we're going to be dumping her. She got replaced by someone else in her political party as prime minister. And so that political party in the elections we've just had, Adam, went from having over 55% of the vote last election to their share of the vote this election was just under half that, at about 26%. So that's a serious trouncing, and speaks a lot. It's encouraging that people were that pissed. It's a shame they weren't at the time, of course, when they should have been picking up pitchforks and marching on our parliament, but they didn't. So now we're in the middle of the election because there's two parties, a party of the so-called right called the National Party, and believe it or not, a libertarian party called ACT is their acronym, who are quite hardcore libertarian. And they got about 10% of the vote. So those two parties between them just have enough of the vote to form a government. But then on top of that, we have about 20% of our votes still to be counted, because New Zealand uniquely has, at any point in time, about 1 million citizens living overseas, which is about 20% of its population. 20% of passport holders live overseas, so they get the opportunity to vote. So their votes have dribbled in and will be counted. And then at the end of that, hopefully in about another week's time, we'll be able to figure out exactly who we do have, and a coalition will get formed between this party called National and this Libertarian Party. So. So there we have it. That's the state of our elections. I don't know. What does it mean? It means that some of the horrific policies of the past will be rolled back, and so that's all very positive. And a few freeing up policies will come to pass in the next 3 years. But as you and I know, Adam, it's a long, long haul, isn't it, to a political system or structure that is anything like what you, I, our listeners, and our colleagues would tolerate.
Exactly. And one thing that I remember talking to you about in regards to, I guess you could just call it New Zealand politics, is they're going through a massive crackdown on tobacco products and cigarettes in particular, which led us to think, hey, this could be a good time to start creating end cap cigars and selling them, not only in New Zealand, but around the world. So that's something we've kicked around a lot. I know we have a lot of cigar lovers in our network. Are they still going crazy with all the banning of everything over there?
Look, the government that's just been thrown out, and reasonably enthusiastically thrown out, has been in power for 6 years. And in that time, they've initiated a lot of mad programs as socialist governments. But that's all they know how to do, is initiate mad programs. And this particular socialist government did bring in this notion that they're going to ban smoking. Because I just find these things so abhorrent, I generally don't dig too much into the detail. But they have claimed they were going to have it banned by 2025, which is in 2 years' time. And I think they've since ameliorated it somewhat by suggesting that they would be not so much banning. I think anyone under the age of 18 as of, God knows what date, let's say 2019, would not be able to buy cigarettes. They were going to limit the number of retailers around the country that can sell them. I don't doubt you'll have to get a license or something as a corner store to be able to sell cigarettes. You can't sell them in supermarkets now. And then on top of that, they have loaded cigarettes with taxes. So let me give you a feel. A packet of 20 cigarettes today is about $30 US. I don't know if you have any sense, Adam.
I don't buy cigarettes often, but I know
Sure.
that's pretty high based on even worldwide standards.
Yeah. That's nuts, isn't it? And look, I don't know. It's a few years ago. I remember being in Malaysia buying cigarettes for a friend of mine, and I think they were about US about $1 a packet there. So I imagine that $30 US, which is probably 25 US in taxes. Which is just hilarious, isn't it? But anyway, Adam, as we know, they're doing it for our own good, and I sometimes wonder how it is that I get out of bed in the morning without the state having considered the proper standards for getting out of bed, because I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, and I'm sure as a consequence my life is going to get shortened or be miserable or something. So,
Well,
God
it's always
forbid.
for your own good, Dave. Just remember that.
It's always for my own good. I mean, as we know, the concept of personal responsibility is repugnant, and it's good that we have a central body of complete idiots who know very little about life or have done anything meaningful in their lives, who are enthusiastically trying to fix things for us. So that's the prognosis for New Zealand, as I suggested. And this is probably true of most Western world jurisdictions, in my view, Adam, is that we've had, if you and I were to describe it in our political terms, we've had 6 years of a pretty hardcore socialist government with what I would even label as a communist leader, which was Jacinda Ardern. We've had that creating policy, creating legislation, driving through legislation that is seriously socialist or collectivist. And with that, we have, from a freedom perspective, gone backwards, from an economic perspective, gone backwards. And of course, but I have the view that we will push some of that back, nowhere near enough, but we will push some of that back over the next 3 to 6 years. And with that, we'll be able to free things up a bit. But we never free them up enough, or we never free them up to the extent that we can say we have rolled back all those initiatives. And it's the same in the US, it's the same in the UK, it's the same across Europe. That it's a 2-step forwards, 1 step back dance for the advance of collectivism.
Yes, and on the note of collectivism, Well, actually, before I deliver this joke, which I'm sure you're going to like, Dave, want to remind everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you have not already, check out the link down below to subscribe to NCAP Radio updates via email. Also, if you're listening on the replay, hit the like button, the retweet button. Be sure to follow everyone up here on stage. We're very excited for the soon-to-be launch of NCAPradio.com as well, where you can listen to all of these episodes and these recordings on demand. So big things coming for ANCAP Radio. Definitely want to stay plugged in there. And I can't remember how I was going to tie this one in now, Dave, but I'm happy to see, for everyone listening, I can see Dave right now on a Zoom call, and he used to have this big Ukrainian flag behind him all the time, and he actually changed it with he's got the Israeli flag up today. Oh, you said collectivism. That's right, collectivism, Dave. So how's the collectivism going for you now on this topic of a war that I was hoping we wouldn't have to talk about a couple weeks ago when we first brought it up.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I mean, I assume that the war in the Ukraine has come to an end. Is it?
There's to your point there, and I think we joked about it 2 or 3 weeks ago when we went live, how all of a sudden that one was over, and then literally within a matter of hours or days after we had gone live, there were headlines about how U.S. funding to Ukraine was coming to an end. So these things they start as jokes, but then that's how it goes.
I can't remember. I flick through as a matter of masochism. I flip through mainstream media every now and again and look at the headlines, and I haven't seen anything on Ukraine that I can think about. So of course it's a Israeli-Palestine war that is. That's brewing, that's dominating the media today. And look, that's in a way, Adam, it's living at the bottom of the world. It's funny that's a scrap that I don't have a dog in. It's an unbelievably complicated fight, isn't it? That goes back literally millennia. If to the extent I'm not a very good student of history, but to the extent I understand the history there, it has been for 4,000 or 5,000 years of recorded history. It's been a piece of dirt it's not even dirt, it's sand, isn't it? That people have fought over, scrapped over, occupied, colonized, been thrown out of, and on it goes.
Do you know? I mean, I've never really looked into it. I feel like you might know better than I do. Like, what is it because that land has been documented truly as holy? Is that what it is? Or is it well positioned geographically for trade and everything?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is well positioned geographically, unquestionably. But my own personal view is that the theological or religious significance of it has just wildly complicated what's going on there in a very significant way. I mean, the Christianity, Judaism, Islam, which are obviously the three religious groupings that dominate that area, all come from that area. They are Abrahamic religions, and that they came from Abraham. Certainly that's the story of all their religious texts. Is that where they started from? So they have that commonality, but it's after that everything starts to fall apart, and they start fighting and scrapping over who's got the proper instructions from their God, and they're all monotheistic religions, and they all have this one God. So that's complicated it all dramatically over the last 2,000 years, indeed, Adam. So, but prior to that, it was just as much a pigsty and a fought-after region. So, but the interesting question, which I posed to a few of my colleagues, and you and I touched on a couple of weeks ago, is that if you were there, either living in Israel and with Jewish heritage or affiliations, or you're living in the West Bank within Israel as a Palestinian with subscribing to Islam, or you're living in Gaza right now, or maybe even we'll say over the last 10, 20, 30 years as a young man, what would you do?
I think it's one of those questions that you can only accurately answer if you are there, which is another
Yeah,
thing. I mean, 99.9% of the world right now thinks that they're actually there watching this play out, with the strong
yeah,
opinion. Maybe I shouldn't say the percentage might not be that high because I know we have
yeah,
some,
yeah,
some ANCAPs out there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but, that's a great question because the first thing I would say is, to give a good answer, I would actually need to be boots on the ground there. But from what I can, if I'm going to play the card of what I can see on TV, um, sounds like most likely, getting ready to join the military. And even here in North America, I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of ads I've seen on mainstream TV, especially during sporting events. I feel like that's probably when you can get the most recruits if you're trying to recruit people to the military. There's just so
Yeah.
many ads right now. Also framing it as though committing to military service is the right thing to do with your life. I'm just very grateful that I never, thankfully never went that way.
So,
But
so
that's
just
my answer there, Dave. Yeah.
let me understand that, Adam. What you're saying is there has been a considerable increase in advertising for by the U.S. armed services for recruits.
Exactly. Yeah. Very,
God.
very noticeable. And I think anyone who's tuned in here or listening on the replay would agree. We're recording this October 2023. Within the past 3 months, and who knows, maybe I'm just watching more sports right now than I usually
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm an athlete. Played basketball, track, and you name it. Played it all my whole life. So
yeah.
I understand there's some collectivism that comes with rooting for sports teams, but at the same time, I
Sure,
do
no, no.
enjoy it. And
Yeah, yeah,
those are if you are looking to recruit people, I would think you're going to get the most males around the age of 18 that will subscribe to your cause tuned in to those types of television events. And there's been a very obvious push on the marketing and advertising front that it's noble to join the Marines, the Army, the Navy. I mean, Air Force. You see it all right now. So yeah,
goodness me.
it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that there's been a lot of people. I'll assume that they're Jewish who have flocked to Israel, say out of North America, to try and participate some way or lend a hand to the Israeli cause.
Right. I mean, that's the again the buzzword that you'll see in your Twitter feed, in your Instagram, wherever. And these are things I'll just recommend to everyone to be aware of because they can be they can be psychological triggers that accidentally suck you into this
Yeah,
chaos. Like that's you want to stay away from that. You want to be as philosophical and third party kind of view and approach on these types of topics as much as you can to maintain your own sanity. But I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
World War III is everywhere in the headlines now.
Yeah, I know.
You plug it in there. I'm sure we
Yeah,
can think of some more if we take the time to. I
yeah, yeah,
remember actually back when Trump was in office, which I'm sure the media, they like to hate on him, but they love his name in the headlines because it gets clicks.
yeah,
So I'm sure he'll
yeah.
be back eventually. But I remember World War III was that was a trend in
Yes,
I don't know 2019 or something like that. So
yes, yes. And
it's
then we
good.
have
It's
the
good to have
mad,
your popcorn with.
isn't it? Yeah. And then we have the mad doomsday clock, which will be getting a lot of focus and attention. Um, no, that's all unbelievable. So the answer is, Adam, if you were today living in the Gaza Strip, I mean, wouldn't you just be, well, in your circumstances, you'd be gathering up your family and just getting the hell out of there somehow?
Knowing, so yes, if it's Adam, there knowing what I know about the world, then absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think that's
yeah,
that's kind of where hopefully we can make an impact, at least in a few people, on our journey here, Dave. Because I think there's just probably a lot of people in that environment that have zero exposure to some of the thoughts that we're sharing here
yeah.
today.
I was looking. Here's an interesting statistic: is that the Gaza Strip, geographically speaking, is, for example, it's half the area of Singapore. Or put another way, Singapore's twice the area, the total area of Gaza Strip. And Singapore has 3 times the population. So with that, you can say Singapore's far more densely populated than Gaza.
All right. Looks like we got disconnected there, Dave. I'm sending you a request to speak again. I don't know if you can hear me, Dave. All right. Well, as we wait for Dave to reconnect, you get all right. Cool. I'm getting a thumbs up from our team. You can hear me. You can hear me. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We got to wrangle Dave. Let him know there in the Zoom chat. We got to get him reconnected. But this is a perfect time, ladies and gentlemen, for an advertisement. So if you're tuned in on the replay, again, share this space with your friends, family, and beyond. Like, retweet, all that good stuff. Tag ANCAP Radio. Make sure you follow everyone up here on stage. Um, Look, we're really, really looking forward to the launch of ANCAPradio.com for multiple reasons. One being this moment right here. We love Twitter Spaces, but every now and then there's just technical challenges, and being able to run it our own way should be a lot of fun. We also have a lot of ANCAPs that don't like social media. They don't like Twitter. They don't like Instagram. They don't like Facebook. Some of the brightest minds in the world you will not find here on Twitter. So very soon, we can't say exactly when because we're still finalizing it, but I say easily within the next 3 to 4 months, we'll have some new names, some new faces, new people going live on this platform directly from the source. So definitely, if you're not subscribed to the email list, which the link is below, go ahead and do that. I can see Dave on Zoom here. Man, Dave is. It's funny. We have our Zoom set up here, so I can see him, uh, just spitting, as we would say in the millennial world, hot fire. We're gonna have to have him restate his what he's saying here. Um, let him know. Just keep letting him know in the Zoom chat there. Anyways, um, making our way through here. I mean, world elections. Something. Just go off the record here personally. Since 2016, I really haven't paid attention to any elections at all. I would give a lot of credit to the anarcho-capitalists in my circles for choosing to think that way. Um, it's funny, and I get crap for it all the time. 2016 was the last year I voted, and I did vote for Trump, and I remember my young innocent mind back then. I mean, the reason I did was because just like a lot of other politicians, you see this person who you think like, wow, they are different. It's gonna be the one entrepreneur who finally gets into politics and changes everything. And he definitely did ruffle some feathers, right? But at the end of the day, he became just another one, and that kind of helped seal the deal for me on this is not the answer. Jeff Berwick, huge inspiration in a lot of this way of thinking. If you guys aren't familiar with Dollar Vigilante, I would highly recommend their platform. I mean, Jeff was really the first person who challenged me to start, I would say, thinking for myself. And I remember there was a phase where on a lot of his programming, he would refer to Americans and Canadians as brainwashed slaves. And I remember hearing that, thinking, as someone who was very proud of America at the time, like, this guy's so good, but he's wrong about that. Like, we're not brainwashed slaves. I just look at it now and it's like, oh wow, couldn't have been more accurate, really, just relatively speaking. The whole world is in some form of tax farm, and getting out of that rat race, I would point all fingers to Jeff and his work and what he's doing, because he's just got some really phenomenal connections. But anyways, we are back now with Dave Henderson. Dave, looks like we had a glitch in the matrix there. I think you must have gotten us flagged, but you're back.
Yeah, I clearly did. I apologize. So I was talking to myself.
Well, you must. I was telling our audience, because they could hear me and I could see you, and I said, guys, when we get Dave back here, we're just going to have him press rewind, because he was dropping some fire.
I was in full flight, Adam. I was talking. The question, of course, I posed to you was, what would you do if you were in Gaza, living in Gaza, for example? But I'd also suggested making the comparison between Gaza geographically and Singapore. So, is Singapore?
We test that part. Yep.
Yeah, is Singapore a place you've been to, Adam?
I have not. Only place in Asia that I've been to was Japan for about 10 days. Right. I've been to Abu Dhabi as well. That was cool. But that's about the extent of my Asian travels.
Well, Hong Kong, of course, historically was the great, wonderful story, showing just the power of human energy and human ingenuity, absent resources. Absent any so-called natural resources. So Singapore is a similar thing. Singapore geographically is twice the size of Gaza. Okay, just to give you a feel, and it's got Singapore's got 3 times the population of Gaza, so it's far more densely populated than Gaza is. Does that make sense?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Track.
And yet, I mean, as we know, Singapore is an economic powerhouse, and the standard of living that the Singaporeans and anyone who lives there enjoy is one of the highest in the world. And it's a wonderful example. If you took Gaza and instead of just wandering around angry and bitter forever, if there was some leadership there that said, you know what, it's a proposition I very much subscribe to, is success is the best revenge. Success is always the best revenge. And instead of trying to then get even they want to wipe out every single Israeli, and every Israeli wants to wipe out every single Hamas, or probably beyond. So if you just actually created the political environment where people were free to produce in that piece of land, the society, the wealth that could be created would just be sensational. And that's what's happened in Singapore. It's probably happened in Singapore. It's over the last 50 or 60 years that it's gone from from what it was when the British military was encamped there in the mid-60s when they left to today. And it's been for a very long time a very wonderful, colourful place with a very high standard of living. And there is no reason at all why that couldn't happen in a piece of geography like Gaza.
And really, the main reason that you're saying that that hasn't been able to take place in somewhere like Gaza is the just the ongoing religious conflict.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's imbued in every little kid, isn't it? And everyone that this is their destiny, is not to go on and build a great country and within that practice respectful and responsible the religious views, but to actually be bitter, be angry, and to go to war. So the end result of that is no one's really producing anything of any grand consequence, unfortunately, and the place is just going to drag on as it has for an awful long time.
Shifting to geopolitics, I'd like to know if you've heard this one recently. This was brought to my attention a couple of days ago, and I think I was actually a few months behind on hearing this, but I just found out. So the U.S. has been known for, I think, since World War II, policing international waters from a trade perspective, but recently made the announcement that they will no longer be doing that. Have you heard about this? And if so, no, yeah. So this is what I've been
No,
told.
no,
Yeah,
I haven't. I
yeah.
haven't heard that suggestion. So, in what time frame are you saying this has been discussed?
I was told a couple of days ago, but the person who told me, I want to say this is this is where sometimes I probably need to step my game up. But they sent me an article on it, and I forgot to read it, and I don't know where that article is now. But
Okay,
but basically, the U.S. will be taking a step back from policing international waters in a way that they have traditionally since World War II, which opens the doors
yeah,
for pirates and really for other countries to have to protect their own trade routes more effectively.
right, right,
So,
right.
and I think that's because with the tension with China and the U.S. and Taiwan in particular, I want to say it's Austin, Texas, and somewhere in Arizona as well. A lot of things that the U.S. has traditionally outsourced is there. I feel weird saying we because I tried to just be a citizen of the world, but we're looking basically to do more of it in house, and it's just going to stir things up a lot. I think it seems like China is running out of options, which no one's really talking about them right now, and where this
Yeah,
would come into a potential world conflict. But I just want to know if
yeah.
you had heard of any of this, and if you have or you haven't, just kind of what your thoughts would be.
No, I haven't heard of it, Adam. It's sort of one of those things where one goes about one's day-to-day activities, taking all that for granted, isn't it? That there is safe routes where all our shipping and cargo can be happily traveling and arrive safely at its destination. But I would imagine, that there must be political groupings, that either include or don't include the US that must participate in that. And of course, each country lays claim to their economic zone around their country, don't they? Which is quite significant. And most countries, I imagine, have some sort of navy or equivalent that is able to police those waters. But that's only one of those issues you're raising. The second issue, of course, is China. And China's military aspirations are a worry, aren't they? They have to be of concern that they've been building a massive armed services, haven't they, for the last 40 or 50 years, and you've got to believe at some stage they want to use that and flex their muscle in some significant way. And for the part of the world I live in, China is the threat. It's not Russia. It's not the Middle East, but it's China that we have to concern ourselves with, and what their military aspirations are.
Is that because New Zealand is on the way to, from by sea? It's on the way to North America and South America, or what is the reason that China seems to be a threat there?
Well, if you were China and wanting to dominate a greater geographical area, I mean, the Australia, New Zealand, and other Asian countries to the north of Australia, New Zealand are just obvious targets, aren't they? And I know that politically that's been an issue for New Zealand historically, has been the aspirations of China. So, but I mean, and of course, in the whole of the South Pacific, China has been cleverly active. Vanuatu's a place, a Pacific island, one of the whole chain of Pacific islands that I know reasonably well. And of course, one of the big issues in Vanuatu is the Chinese came in and spent millions building a new embassy there, which they've had thoroughly populated now. And they also contributed to a lot of infrastructure, including a new wharf. And the more conspiratorially minded folk that I know of are very highly animated about the fact that the new wharf is something like 10 meters longer than China's new aircraft carrier.
Well, there you go. It sounds like a solid investment.
Yeah, no, it is. You got to admire them, how particularly clever they are, and the long-term view that they take. And of course, just slightly to the northwest of Vanuatu is the Solomon Islands. I've been very active in there, pouring in infrastructure. They've recently turned up in Tonga, and so they obviously clearly have a plan to go into these places to spend money improving their own base there, which is their embassies and so forth, and facilities for embassy staff. And then on top of that, they're pouring in a whole heap of aid, which these island nations are just sponges for aid,
Now,
and always have an aspiration and need for them.
on the note of Vanuatu, because I know we talk about this a lot on the show as well. Do you see it as a legitimate place to call home as an ANCAP? Is it one of those places that's just nice to know you have access to, and maybe you can get a citizenship there? Or, I mean, what's your take on Vanuatu? Because it's kind of been on the radar in the ANCAP circles for a while.
Yeah. Well, it's got a number of virtues, Adam, which are worth reflecting on. I mean, it does sort of meet that, in a way, it meets that fantasy that a lot of people have of this, this idyllic Pacific retreat, of golden sand beaches, beautiful clear crystal waters, waving palm trees, and a delightful climate. So it meets all those physical, we'll say, ideals. But it's always appealed to me because it's got there's a number of islands through there. Historically, you have been able to buy islands, but in the last 20 years, that's changed where you can only lease land. So you get a 100-year lease on an island or a 100-year lease on a block of land. So that's attractive. But there's something like, and I stand to be corrected on this, the exact number, 128 different tribal groupings throughout Vanuatu. So it's 128 tribal groupings. Indeed, the suggestion is there's 128 dialects of this sort of pidgin English that they speak. And so it's the prospect of 128 groups being able to actually get on and coalesce is almost an impossibility, isn't it? And so that's a positive. I mean, the fact that these people can't get on, they're generally speaking are fundamentally peaceful people. They regularly anesthetize themselves with kava, which is hilarious because they do become terribly docile. They don't become aggressive in any way. The locals. The main town there is Port Vila, where the new port I was talking about that can accommodate China's new aircraft carrier. That's the main town, and that's where the government resides, or the houses of parliament reside. And that had something at one stage 170 nakamals, and a nakamal is a carver, a little carver bar, if you like. But when you and I use the term bar, we have a mental image picture of something quite different to what exists, I can assure you. But you can get 170 of those. That's a lot for a population about 30,000. So anyway, I'm still answering your question in the long way. So, it's always appeared to me that it's a place that would if you just want to find a hideaway and you were going to leave everyone alone, that I think by and large you would be well left alone there, and one could establish not a completely autonomous retreat, but you could establish one that was largely autonomous and had little to do with the local government. Taxes are fundamentally just a sales tax on goods and services, so it becomes a reasonable option. Beyond that, there is. It's been relatively easy to get a passport in there. So, that's also been an attractive proposition. It hasn't taken much of an investment or commitment to get a passport. So,
right. Our friend, who I'm sure we'll have on soon, actually, Mikkel Thorup, I know he's helped a lot of people get that passport. And I think you were able to get yours as well, right?
No, I actually didn't get a passport in the end, Adam. I was going to, but I haven't. I've got a number of friends who've just gone in there and done that. No, ironically, the thing I did do, the only thing I did do is I went to some government office and got for about $20 US, I got a driver's license, which has served me well because they just got you to tick some boxes as to what license you want. So I ticked every box, which was, bus, bulldozers, motorbikes, cars, anything. I've got the whole lot now. The license is fantastic. It looks a wee bit like something you might get in a cereal packet. That's historically.
So that's fascinating. Do you think it's still like that? Basically, what you're saying is you went there, you got licensed to drive anything that exists, and because it's issued by a government, you could technically use that anywhere in the world.
Oh, I use it. I use it extensively. I've used it in the US. I use it to hire rental cars in the US for a start, which is great. But I have used it on a few occasions where I've been pulled over by cops in the US, and I pull out this license, and they just get angry. So they turned upside down and sideways. They're trying to figure out, but it's got a legitimate stamp on it, and everything else that is needed to legitimize it. And so they have to accept it. They have to live with it. But it's wonderful. And of course, in New Zealand, we have demerit points, which I'm sure you do too, where after enough transgressions on the road, the state decides to take away your license for a automatic 3 or 6 month period. And so, and even in New Zealand, I have, for many years, I didn't have a New Zealand driver's license. I just operated on this. And I saved myself demerit points as a consequence. I'd get traffic fines and pay them instantly, would never get the demerit points. Unfortunately, in the town I live in, I have a reasonably high profile, for better or worse. And so anyway, I think a couple of our local police force decided they were going to fix me. And anyway, I had my car taken away, arrested. It's a long story, but anyway, I had to get my car back. I had to go and get a New Zealand license, and so reluctantly I did. But I still carry this license with me, and every now and again I whip it out, if for no other reason, for a bit of fun. So if you're thinking of going to Vanuatu, you must go to whatever the local government department is. I can't tell you. There's not a lot of them. So you go to the government building and tell them you want a driver's license, and go in there and pay your $20 and walk out the door, and you're underway.
It's one of those things that I'm definitely going to try if I ever go there. It almost sounds too good to be true. Was that how long ago was that? Do you think they still have a similar process?
I understand. That was a few years ago that I got that and have used it. I don't know, it'd be 20 years ago now, probably, Adam. But I understand from colleagues recently that they're still there, and that's the process. So, which is very benign and rational, isn't it? Of course, the passport. I must get the up-to-date details. And you're right. Our friend Mikhail Thorup will know exactly what the current situation is. But it was a reasonably low investment level to get a passport. So the only problem is that I think, because they haven't towed the line with, I assume it's the OECD, they've been coming under pressure in a myriad of ways to do so. That in recent times, I think it's the Shenzhen grouping have stopped it being visa-free entry, and I think perhaps, I don't know whether the US does as well. But so that's the only issue with it. But it's an option, Adam, as we
Right.
regularly talk about. What are options?
Right. Yeah. And I did hear that about, well, just the Shenzhen region in general is kind of going through a little bit of a more restrictive era. Mikkel is definitely a great person to talk to on these topics. I know for those tuned in as well, if you have or have never heard of Lieberland, I'm happy to be well connected there. I help them with their citizenship as well. Dave, we got to get you your Lieberland citizenship. I don't know if you have your passport yet. We got to take care of that.
No. I'd be very keen to discuss that
The
with you.
first the
Thank you.
first time I used my Lieberland passport was to buy alcohol in Denver, Colorado. So you can use it. You can use it. Actually, I've been told that you can enter the country of Haiti with it too. So that would be a fun
That's
one
great.
to test out. We did have, we had Vit on the show, and I remember that was one where, we joked with our producer
We did.
before the show. I think we forgot to hit record on that one, so we'll probably have to bring him back on. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, check out Lieberland. Look them up here on Twitter. I know they've got a lot going on right now, and you talked about the 99-year lease with Vanuatu. I know Lieberland has a deal like that as well with anyone who becomes a citizen. You're
Right.
entitled to a certain amount of land there that is on a 99-year lease. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. No, you must invite him back on, because that's a very ballsy effort that he's gone to, and well worth. We must make the time to support all those initiatives. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour here, Dave. I know covered a lot of ground here. I always like when we do get to have the the ones where we just hang out. I know we're working on some more guests for the coming weeks here, and again, as the website becomes ready, we know we have we'll just say some heavy hitters in the libertarian space that prefer not to be on social media that are that are ready to go.
We do.
Um,
We do.
I
We
talked
do.
about the website a little bit
No,
when you were getting reconnected. Could you just kind of give your take and your thoughts on the direction we're going with ANCAP Radio?
well, the notion is that we want to have our own website, our own platform, if you like, where we can't be deplatformed. That becomes a 7 day a week, 24-hour venue where anyone who has any interest at all in the philosophy, this political philosophy, can tune in at any point in time and
It looks like audio might have cut out there.
understand.
Oh, you're back. There we go.
Sorry. We hope to have it as a place where a venue where people in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, tune into hopefully a live show most of the time, or reruns of real meaningful material that will help them in a myriad of ways, help them understand this philosophy that we're promoting, help them live more of a free life, more of a free existence in what is becoming an ever repressive planet.
Well said. Well said. And yeah, I just as you were saying that, I'm thinking through some of the people we've had on here already who I know would be eager to come back on. I've been talking to Gert a lot lately, Dr. Mulder.
Right.
I don't know if you've
Yep.
gotten to polish up your relationship with him at all, but he's probably one of the funniest people I know. Looking forward to having him back on, and a few others,
You bet.
Doug,
Yep.
Doug and Jeff. So, anyways,
Yep.
we'll go ahead and call it here today. What would you say was
We
your
will.
biggest takeaway from today's conversation, Dave?
Well, I mean, it's been great having a chat with you, Adam. And again, just being able to reflect on. We talked a bit about the Israeli Palestinian issue, which you could tune in here in 1,000 years' time, and assuming that we haven't completely blown ourselves up, that fundamental issue will be going on, and it is fundamentally it's an issue of saying, I'm right, you're wrong, and because you're wrong, I'm going to destroy you, and that will help prove that I'm right. I mean, it's just an insanity.
Yep. And on that note, there's one point I wanted to make earlier, and I still haven't found a rabbit hole to go down that's been this, say, personally eye-opening. Graham Hancock is the creator's name. If you're not familiar with Graham Hancock, I would just type his name in, Graham Hancock, Joe Rogan. Joe did a great interview with him, and Graham just kind of talks about how modern history, what we know, we're talking about how this conflict has been happening for 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years.
Yep.
There is history beyond that. We just don't have access to it. And if there's anyone
Yeah.
who has
Yeah.
access to it, or is at least uncovering a lot of anything from 6,000 to 12,000 years ago, it's the work
Yeah.
of Graham
Yeah.
Hancock, which, basically this whole argument is this land is mine, right? But
Yeah.
who's to say
Yeah.
it's nobody's land in a way? And I don't mean that. I don't mean
Yeah.
that in a Klaus Schwab way.
No, 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 no,
Because
no, no. I'm with you. Yeah, yeah. No, no, I'm with you. It's a very fascinating proposition, and one has to be very humble about that.
yep, yep. So that's my
Okay.
call to action there for everyone is look up the most recent interview Joe Rogan did with Graham Hancock, and who knows, maybe we'll get both of those guys here on ANCAP Radio one day. I do think
You bet.
Graham is a little bit more of an ANCAP, but always
You
we're
bet.
always open for a conversation. Dave, thank you for investing your most
Thank
valuable
you,
resource
Adam.
with us here today. Our audience, Jaffer, I see you out there. You're the man, Jaffer. We'll see you all next week. And yeah, everyone, take care. This is ANCAP Radio.
Thanks, Adam.